This is Bad Beats. We are doing beat breakdown number 2. This time it is a Kendrick Lamar To Pimp a Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City type beat. We're gonna be making everything from scratch, so no samples this time. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. Let's get into it. All right, so what was the first thing? The first thing that we have is these neo-soul style piano chords. I got the idea from, I don't know if it was a YouTube video or it was another beat that I was listening to, or like I was digging for samples and I heard this. But I kind of took what I was hearing in the sample and did my best to replicate it in here. And then I kind of changed them up to fit the style that I was going for as I went along. So here's what the piano chords sound like. So for these piano chords, as I usually do, I have the bass notes layered. The notes are played 3 times on 3 separate octaves, but only 2 of them act as the bass. And as usual, I did Alt-S to make the strummer and Alt-R to randomize the volumes of the notes. And for the piano, I just had light EQ, just lowering down the lows a little bit, just to kind of make room for the bass. Then I layered it with a Rhodes. So for the Rhodes, I EQ'd out all the highs and most of the lows. I used Fruity Pan-O-Matic to have it pan between ears pretty rapidly to give it a little bit of a vibrato. Here's what the Rhodes sound like. Next is kind of a conglomerate of a lot of different string sounds, whether it be long strings or kind of more staccato strings, or some of them are in between. And I kind of made a string-based melody as well. So here's what all the strings together sound like. For the extended strings, I have these heavily EQ'd, cutting a little bit of the highs out and pretty much all of the lows, heavy reverb, and I have a volume automation clip that kind of takes the volume from being the same throughout the extended notes to kind of moving it up and down a little bit. Essentially, the higher up this automation clip is, the higher the volume is, the lower it is, the lower the volume is. One last thing about the strings is that, similar to the piano, I randomized and altered the volumes of all the strings just to make them not sound as stagnant, hitting on the same volume level every time. And then I added one last piano melody, so that'll play in the piano roll right now. And then here is what all that together will sound like. Next is the bass. Similar to the last beat I did, I typically try to follow the root notes of the chords. Because I was using chords that I created, I was able to expand on the bass line a little bit and not make it as stagnant. So here's what the bass line sounds like. And then here's what the bass line sounds like with the piano and the strings. Next we have the drums. I started off with a kind of Afrobeat style kick mixed with some really weird toms that pan between each ears. And then I layered it with a snare and a cowbell, 2 different cowbells actually. One of them hits at the same time as the snare, just a little bit delayed to kind of give it a more loose and realistic feeling. The other is EQ'd, sounds a lot more condensed, acting as a second snare. And then on top of that, I added a simple crash pattern. So here's what the drums sound like. For all of the drum sounds, I usually EQ out the very lows that can't really be heard on headphones or speakers, but still take up room that the bass would be taking up. And then on some of the drums, I have a little bit of reverb, nothing too much. I won't even really go into that. It's just a fraction of reverb to give it more of a live feel. Speaking of the cowbell layered with the snare, I was saying that the cowbell hits a little bit after the snare. I recommend manually adjusting where your second snare, or in this case where the cowbell hits, because when you layer 2 snares together or 2 percussion instruments that are supposed to hit at the same time, if they hit just a little bit off, and then when you combine that with the fact that some of the volumes are randomized, it really makes it feel like it's played live rather than clicked in. And then I layered it with a shaker and a simple hi-hat pattern, which doesn't really overpower the shaker that I have. I kind of wanted them to work and coexist. Here's what all the drums sound like with the hi-hats and the shakers. Speaking of the shakers and the hi-hats, I used 3 different hi-hats, and I kind of tried to make them sound as conjoined as possible, try to make them blend together. And for the shakers, I used 1 shaker, but similar to the hi-hats, I randomized the pitches, usually making the first 8th note shaker or hi-hat hit a little bit louder than the second one, just to give it a little bit more of a live feel. Now that we have all that, we're gonna layer it all together, and I'll show you what the chorus sounds like. Next, we go to the verse. I have the piano and the Rhodes, got rid of all the strings and the second piano melody, and I rolled with the drums with no hi-hats, plus this little synth melody that I have, which I'll show you what that sounds like. And then I'll show you what it sounds like with the piano and the Rhodes layered on as well. And it's a pretty simple arrangement. I have a bit of an extended intro going, chorus, 16-bar verse, then a 16-bar double chorus, and then we transition to the second half of the beat. I did a beat switch, using the same instrumentation, same drums, and the same instrument sounds, but then I varied the chords and varied the melodies. So we'll move on to that next. We're rocking with the same drums, but I got rid of the piano chords and I just roll with the Rhodes chords. So here's what they sound like after transitioning into the beat switch. So now that we have that, I'm going to make a new bass line, make a string chord progression that mirrors the Rhodes chord progression, but will just be a lot quieter, and then add a piano melody, and then I'm probably gonna add in that synth melody that was really ear candies that I had in the verse on the first half. So here is what the strings sound like on top of the Rhodes. And then we'll layer in the bass. Here's what the strings, the Rhodes, the bass, and the piano, and the synth sound like. Now that we have all the loops set, I'm gonna do the quick arrangement, finalize everything, and then I will show you guys what the beat sounds like from the intro through the chorus and a little bit into the verse, and then we'll kind of fast forward to the beat switch because it's almost a 5-minute long beat, so I don't want to take up all the time doing that. So yeah, I guess we'll let that play out. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you like this beat. I think next beat breakdown that I'm gonna do is a Tyler the Creator, Flower Boy Igor, Wolf, somewhere in there type beat. But for now, I will still take recommendations in the comments for what you wanna hear next. It's my boy Kyle behind the camera as always. Go subscribe to his channel, he makes good shit. That's about it. I hope you guys like this. Leave a thumbs down, don't leave a comment, and unsubscribe. Thank you. Dude, Chris Duarte fell off. Pretty heavy.
That's me added in the video. Chris Duarte fell off.
Oh, he did, bro. He was looking nice last year.